Hello and welcome to Two Blokes in a Cave, a philosophical podcast hosted by me, Carlson Sin, and my good friend Cameron Wright. No funny intros today. We're going to jump into it. We've got a very deep and kind of off into the weeds discussion today, and we've had a bit of a chat before the show about what direction we're going to take this and how it's going to go. So I think without further ado, we're going to do the Ship of Theseus, and we're going to give that a red hot crack. So for those of you who don't know, the Ship of Theseus is this mythical ancient Greek ship. There's a bit of mythology about it. I think that one of the kings of Athens rescues some people from the Minotaur or something, and they have this commemorative ship that they take to kind of appease the god Apollo or someone about how great life is. And the question is essentially, if after the thousands of years that this has been taking place and the ship slowly comes into disrepair and has to be maintained and repaired and ultimately replaced, the hull, the mast, the sails, the rudder, slowly over time get replaced. Eventually it's a completely new ship, materially at least. So I guess the question is,
or
is it the same ship? Is it still the ship of Theseus?
Yeah, the
or
ship's
is it
been
a different
doing
ship?
this thing back and forth, and each individual part is
Component has been every nail, every screw, piece of wood has been replaced. And even though, I guess the question is really is it still Theseus's ship, or is it an entirely new ship? So I'm going to throw it to Cameron because he is the resident philosophy expert to give us just the hardest question of all time. Hey, mate, so what do you reckon?
I like it. I mean, I'm not just a pre-word, I suppose. I'm not like an actual... This one, if you're actually a philosopher, you might listen to what we're saying and be like, hang on a sec, you're missing all the points. So this is like a very precursory, us barely researching it, talk about it, to see what our opinions are. But we found it interesting in general, so I thought, give it a go.
Certainly, I'm a big fan of... it's like kind of anything ancient and Greek is kind of like a good introduction to philosophy. These are all relatively good thought experiments. I guess, I'll preface with, this isn't a lecture, obviously. We're not trying to teach you how to do things. We're just kind of reasoning out the ideas in real time. That being said, it is hard to be dead wrong. I guess you probably can, but it is difficult to be dead wrong in many of these philosophical kind of questions or sort of theories. And for the Ship of Theseus, I'll let you kind of give me your quick sort of Soldier's 5. Before we jump into that,
we just had a note from our producer here, Brendan. He's given us a straight indication we hadn't mentioned something important. Go on.
Okay, so today's episode is actually sponsored by Darkest None, Sins of the Father, a book, pretty impressive book, written by a pretty impressive fellow.
Yeah, the author himself, super impressive.
Cool guy.
Yeah. When I was reading the part of it, I almost felt like I knew the guy.
So that's the, obviously link in the description. Love you to buy a copy. It's a fantastic kind of fantasy epic, or the best that I could probably describe as a philosophical epic about human nature, and it's dressed up with knights and princesses and kind of epic medieval battles. So it's a pretty good read, I think. I mean, most of my friends seem to like it, mostly because I said I'd unfriend them if they tell me anything else. So they've been pretty nice. Yeah. But
it's Carlton's book, by the way. He wrote it. It's not some random book. Yeah.
But I spent a lot of time on it. I really enjoyed the idea of crafting characters and watching them kind of grow and evolve, which was the joy for me. And the joy really that I find in philosophical discussion is talking about what motivates people. Like what is the why to X, I think is really, really exciting. So to write a book and craft your own characters and have them adventure and go off in different directions is actually really, really cool. And part of it is very relevant to today's topic on the Ship of Theseus, because I guess my read is it's kind of an allegory for humans. Like we are constantly changing and evolving on a molecular
Yeah.
level. Like I think our cells, they are literally changed and on the regular. So materially, like we are not physically made of the same stuff. Every 7 or so years, we're completely replaced by new cells. I think that's at the heart of what the Ship of Theseus is really, are you the same person? Is the ship the same person? Like what constitutes you? Because it's probably not the material, skin cells that make up my good looking friend Cameron, because they all change. Like they are replaced by new cells, which is why he's such a handsome young man. So that's...
Oh, I thank you.
That's
My
like
old
what
cells are
motivates me. Yeah, my old cells are better. Those like 22-year-old cells, they were looking pretty good. But that's, I think, like that's one of the more interesting philosophical questions is like what are you?
Yeah, that's right.
If not the material being, and do you if that's your philosophy, are you several people over your lifetime because you've changed several times and you've had the ability to sort of reinvent yourself?
Well, yeah, I think it's, like you said, it's one of the major questions. I think there's like about 4 major ones you learn. I think in intro philosophy, it's like, what is, why do we know, which is like epistemology or something. What is effectively metaphysics. Like what is, what do we know? I think ethics falls into a category. And there's a 4th one I should always forget.
It's probably theology.
You
always forget theology.
That's part of it. There's a 4th,
what is that other one? Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Philosophy of mind or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But this one, I guess, is the question. It's an identity question. Like, and I guess when you mentioned that before, I was thinking it is kind of have to separate. Are you talking about a human, or when you read it or think about this example, do you think about the actual ship? That's where two people's minds go, and people who go to the ship go, well, you've replaced every part on the ship. It's effectively a new ship. Yeah. But I guess the analogy is, your body. And I think the thing is between 7 and 10 years, every cell in your body is replaced or rejuvenated by another cell. So you're effectively not the same matter over a 15-year period. You're completely different. All your matter has gone or been expelled or been died and pushed out. You're completely new cells. So the thing is, like, is that the new ship? Is it the same ship? And is the fact that you can just replace a little bit by a little bit enough to have that continuity of form? I guess it's also a form and a matter question. Is it the form of the ship, or is it the matter of the ship that makes the ship? And is it a consequential thing? Do you have to have it going in time? And I find it's actually more complicated than it seems on the
it's much more. So let's make it more simple then to start with. And I think I certainly, when I first read this several years ago, I think I focused on the ship. Yeah. And it wasn't until I kind of reflected a little bit on that, I'm like, wait a second, is this ship just like a person? Yeah. Because I think that's probably maybe a layer deeper. I think,
I fully always thought it was a person.
But
in my mind, I don't know why.
But if it is just a ship, and take a ship for instance, and we'll run through the sort of thought experiment in real time, which is what we're all about. So take I don't know if everyone knows what a galley is. I think producer Brendos might chuck a picture of an ancient Greek galley up there, but it's a fairly basic ship. There's not a ton of parts, but you imagine like the oars and the sails and the deck and the hull. Okay, so if you have that vessel and on day one, it's brand new, and we go, well, that is the Ship of Theseus. It's my ship. If you replaced the oars, I don't think there's many people that would say it's no longer the Ship of Theseus or Theseus' ship. They would say, well, yeah, it is still, the essence of the ship is still Theseus, even though there are parts that have come in that are not Theseus. Yeah. So I think, to your point, the idea that it's replaced part by part makes it seem like there is no, it's like the beard thing. Like, when is facial hair a beard, or is it just sort of scruffy? It's eventually a beard, but like, what is
the one hair a beard?
Yeah.
No, it's 2 hairs a beard.
Exactly. No. So like, and I think the continuity of it is, well, if you replace the oars and then you sail around for a while under the auspices of this is Theseus' ship, then it becomes Theseus' ship once again. Almost like you might lose 2%, but then you gain it back over time, because it just is part of the ship now. So in my mind, the way I would look at it is if you slowly replace things, you're actually not diluting, I suppose, like Theseus's ship, the percentage.
Yeah.
Is how I've sort
That
of
new part of the ship actually is now
becomes
becoming part of the ship.
like it becomes part of the ship. If you were to replace, everything in one go, well then all of a sudden you're like,
all of a sudden you have two of them.
It's definitely a new ship. So it's an interesting idea of like, well, what is the cutoff, and why do you think perhaps slowly replacing things is different or isn't the same? Like the form, the essence of the ship is like, okay, well here's a way I would look at it, and I'm a bit of a weirdo like this, so I would look at it like, what is a ship? And someone might say, well, a ship is a deck and a hull and a sails. And I'm like, well, that's not actually what a ship is. That's what a ship needs to be a ship. But what a ship is freedom, is the ability to traverse anywhere you want to go, an ability to take you to a place that you want to go. And it needs to have certain things to be a ship. But that's not what a ship is. Like what a ship is freedom. It's a bit, it's a little bit kind of cliche and a bit cinematic, perhaps for my for this sort of thing. But that's what I would say. What a ship is.
That is simply a boat.
Yeah. That's what I would start with. Is it's not necessarily that the ship of Theseus is a sum of its parts.
Yeah.
Like the ship of Theseus is a vessel that goes from A to B. The material components of which are actually irrelevant to Theseus's ship. Right. In the purely material ship part of this equation, the boards are not important because they kind of never are Theseus's ship. Theseus's ship is more of an idea that takes us from here to here. Yeah. And the boards are just what Theseus's ship needs to make that a reality. That's how I've looked at many a thing in life. Yeah. As, I guess there's the material component and then there's the essence of what a thing is. What it is. And I think
how much does the material part relate to the essence part? So if you I would think that I get what you're saying. Like, it's Theseus' ship. We're going to call this Theseus' ship. And it's like categorized in everyone's mind, this is a ship. And we understand what that is. We see it. It's like imprinted in our mind. But in reality, it's like a bunch of atoms. And there'll come a point where if you replace... So we both agree if you go from this point on right now, this is a ship. If you came along and pushed that ship to the left and went, we're going to replace it with all these parts, and it's exactly another ship, you would say, well, that's not this ship. That's just some replacement.
It's a different ship, yeah.
And I'm assuming there'd be a full essence of something, a point with no return once you replace that of the ship. Surely maybe. You could be a small thing, or it could be the whole hull.
Well, I think that's the question is the essence of the ship in any way linked to the material components of the ship? And I'm not sure. I'm not sure actually that is the case on a ship level. My granddad was in the Navy, and obviously, it's actually not obvious, but he fought in a few wars. Yeah, obviously,
fully kneed that.
Everyone's granddad. Yeah, everyone's granddad's basically been in some sort of
who's in the Navy? Falklands. I already knew it. Huh?
Just the best war, really. Yeah. I think because he fought in Korea, so there wasn't a ton of naval stuff. It was more of a kind of ground thing. But the point is, there was still damage to the ship. It still got fired upon, and I don't think anyone thought or cared. He was on, I call it the HMS Victory because I don't know what it was called. But no one
thinking.
Exactly. Well, they're coming off a bit of a hot streak. But imagine. Once the repairs are done, no one thinks it. The Victory itself is not the steel girders. Do you know what I mean? That's not what the ship is. I mean, you probably make a better argument that the people on board are more linked to the essence of the Victory than the material components of the ship. And you probably, and maybe I'm sort of extrapolating a little bit over the top here, but you imagine when you and my granddad did every year, would meet with some of the people that lived in sort of the southeast Queensland region, who'd meet up with these like Anzac compatriots. Yeah, for sure. Like it was Anzac Day. So they would go and then they would all have a special kind of function, and it was all kind of really, really cool to see actually. But they would meet up, and in a way, you're kind of like, that is the HMS Victory. Do you know what I mean? Like that's the essence of the ship.
Yeah, what they would probably call themselves that in a way as well.
Probably were. They were like wearing the wingtips. But like they could meet together, and they would have a better argument saying that like the ship that has been sunk off the coast of, Sydney or something many years ago didn't die when it was retired. It lives on in the lives of the sailors that made that ship possible.
The ship itself isn't the matter that it's made of.
I guess like I would say, the essence of the thing is like, and I'm a bit more spiritual than the average bear these days. Probably not historically, but these days, certainly. And there is a spiritual element to life, whether or not you are in touch with that or accept that reality. And I think it's relatively easy to prove that like there is something beyond purely the material. I don't think there's
relatively easy to prove. I'd love to otherwise it's over the conversation. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think, and that's probably a great conversation for another podcast. Yeah. But like that's certainly and you kind of given me the idea of like doing a podcast.
Write that one down.
Like the material, and I think. In a sense, I guess we won't get too far into it, but in a sense, it's easy to prove because materialism is in and of itself limiting, but people are, like by and large, limitless on aggregate. Like they have the capacity to think and dream beyond the bounds of their physical reality. Right. Like if you can do that, then there's more than just the physical. But that's probably, again, I'll go into more detail on what I think about that, because this is not really... We're talking about Ship of Theseus here.
Well, here's a question.
I want to get eventually like onto the people, which I think is more interesting. But on the ship side, definitely the essence of a thing is far more important than the material. Like I think you're like if you were hit by a car and in hospital, and they did some Stephen Hawking thing, and you could talk through a computer, but your body was kind of dead like a vegetable. Like you would still be Cameron, even if your body didn't work. Yeah. I'm still talking to my buddy Cameron, and I wouldn't think less of you because you didn't have a physical body. Again, we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit because I want to finish the ship thing. But the ship thing is the essence of the thing is not the material components it's made out of. Well,
that's an interesting. Well,
how do you like that? Hey.
Well, I was going to say riddle me this. What happened? Because there's another part of it too, which I think I don't know if it's too early to get into, but like. In the story, I think another person in like the 18th century or something posited that, let's just theoretically say you were replacing all parts on the ship, but you kept them and you rebuilt the original in the museum like next door on land. Yeah, so all the old rotting bits that you were trying to replace are actually now put back together in its original form. Yeah. And that is actually the original
Ship of Theseus.
It's just an older, decrepit version.
Just a piece of crap.
Yeah, it's not usable either. So you're going on more the side of like, what is it?
Well, I would say it's nothing.
It's its form.
It's just used material.
Right.
Because I would have a hard time thinking anyone would look at that and go, that's Theseus' ship, when they caught Theseus' ship to get there to look at it. Do you know what I mean? Like if Theseus' ship is a commemorative vessel, and we might get, like I said, in post, we might get Brendos to throw up like a quick blurb explaining the Ship of Theseus, like just given like the kind of rundown from a third party. So we're not making this sort of nonsense up. But
we're like, we missed the whole thing. It's actually Perseus.
You'll never see this episode if that's the case. So, but there is like this idea that the Ship of Theseus has a set route, and it goes between two places to celebrate the victory.
Yeah, it's like a commemoration.
It's
of
not.
Some previous,
I think it's made up thing. Killing the Minotaur. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, and it's like
it's not a real thing. I remember
thinking
it was
mythology. I can't remember what the guy's name was, Minon or something like that. I don't know, who cares?
That sounds about right.
Yeah, it could be.
It's the guy from. Isn't it the same emperor from Troy?
Well, that's Agamemnon. That's just fascinating. I'm reading this a great book by Will Durant. I'd shout him out, but he died a long time ago, so there's no real need. But great historian.
He can't fight back.
That's true. And he was writing about like ancient Greece, and I think it's the island of Crete. Like predates the kind of Athenian like mainland kind of Peloponnese Greco culture by like a couple thousand years.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it's like
a
during
little
the
island.
Egyptian time, and that's a lot of that is where you get the Agamemnon, Troy.
Okay.
So there's actually a fair amount of evidence that Troy did exist. There was battles. It was a lot earlier than people thought
Right.
initially, which is kind of really cool.
And it felt like a hand-me-down parable that didn't.
It becomes
story,
kind of mythology when you
Yeah.
like after a certain amount of time, most legends become myth
Yeah.
to some degree. But anyway, I digress a little
Yeah.
bit. But yeah, the point of it is the ship of Theseus is a vessel that takes people from here to here to praise the god Apollo, I want to say, and like honor him for the helping the victory against the Minotaur. That's the
basically.
essence of what's happening with the ship of Theseus. And then people come in and say, well, what happens when you replace the bits of the ship? And I would say, well, it's kind of like, I would say it's irrelevant. The ship of Theseus is a vessel built to honor a victory, and that itself is not like the victory isn't material anymore, but we would still celebrate the victory even though it's no longer a physical material reality.
Interesting. So I actually completely think like the exact opposite.
That's
So like,
mad, Doug. There we go. It's
in
a
my
debate
mind,
show.
To me, when I first come across this, it is a full like matter problem, not a form problem, like not a description thing. Like there is a thing where when we see an object, we can say it's like material. And I have an image of this object, like this table in my head, and you have an image of this table, but the image in our head isn't the table. Like this is the table.
Yeah.
And there's like a thing where we could describe the table as much as we want and what we do with it. Like this is my table. I did it for this. It's my specific working table, and it has a purpose and it does certain things, and we could replace half of it. But in reality, it's still just a specific piece of wood, and all of that action that you're doing to put meaning on it is actually coming out of your brain. It's not actually in the object.
Yeah,
So,
right.
for example, I actually think if they took all the parts off the ship and made a new ship on board, I would probably go to the museum because I want to see that one. Because that is, in my opinion, that's kind of the ship. Because if you keep going to the logical conclusion of replacing the parts, over 1,000 years, the ship of Theseus could now just be a tugboat or a speedboat that gets us to the island 10 times faster because people want to see that island. And now the actual ship of Theseus has lost its like
It's gone.
part
It's
essence.
lost
Even though
its-
it's doing the same thing, it's
lost its-
something's off.
Well, what would you? I mean, again, I don't want to. I like where you're going with it, so I don't want to poke a hole in it. But I, when they say replace it, they are replacing it verbatim, aren't they? Like they're replacing it exactly the way it was.
It's I think like
It's
supposed to be
just
almost
new.
like we're almost like they made two ships at the factory.
Yeah,
And they're like
just
exactly
taking
the same.
parts
We're
out.
taking
Yeah,
this one
swapping the
exact
parts.
bolt to this. Yeah.
It's I can't quite get over the idea that anything is merely its material components.
Yeah.
I just think that there is more to, like, we are humans, and like I've said before on the pod that I'm sort of a romantic, which is that I just think humans are what is important in life. Like otherwise we're just a bunch of monkeys on a rock. Like who cares? Do you know what I mean? Like
I
sharks
agree.
can't admire shark weeks, you know, because they don't care. They're just
I
eating,
do love
killing
animals,
machines.
but I know what you mean. The
But
humans
they don't admire this. Like a jaguar doesn't know it's a stealthy beast. It's like, I just am a jaguar. There's no appreciation of the caiman. Like, I'm gonna eat you. That's it. There's no, you know what I mean? Like there's no concept of higher reason or will. It's just a bunch of things existing. And I would argue, as a quick aside, because I think it's very funny, like if a tree falls in the woods and there's no human to hear it, like it doesn't make a sound. For all intents, but it doesn't. Who cares? It doesn't make a sound.
Right.
Like humans are what infer value on things.
What about a bunch of like primates or something?
Yeah, they're not
like
humans
watching
though. Yeah. Like it doesn't matter. Like if a bunch of primates do what, it doesn't matter. It makes no difference to me. They're a bunch of primates.
Yeah.
And they react to stimulus in a base way that we would, you know, when things happen to me, my instincts are of a higher capacity that I would go, okay, well, you know, a tree falls over, like, why did it fall over? Did someone hit it? Did someone cut it down? Was there a light? You know, as opposed to like, hey, the tree fell down. That's probably the beginning and end of the thought process for the chimps is like, hey, tree fell down.
But what happens if...
cool crap.
yeah, I guess so. But I think some stuff came out recently that's like kind of... chimps, I think dolphins and elephants and someone else have a little bit of recognize where they can actually like recognize themselves in the mirror, and they can remember past
like
faces from like 10 years
thing.
ago,
It's
and
quite good.
they can pre-think and plan and all this sort of crap we
I've
associate
seen a
with,
lot of
like,
these
thinking
things.
about
It's
it.
quite cool. I mean, it's very cool, but I'm pretty sure if you like look at it, they say it's basically the intelligence of like a 3-year-old.
Well, here's a point then.
like
What happens if about 400 3-year-olds saw that tree fall in the forest?
For sure, different though.
Why?
Do you know what I mean? I'd say the difference is not in the raw intelligence of a small child to understand the world around them, but it is that. Oh, that's an interesting point. I would say I'm trying to work through this kind of on the spot, but it would be
No, I didn't.
my son.
We didn't plan this
Yeah,
one, by the way.
no.
This is
My son could point out to me a tree falling down, and he may not have the tools intellectually to articulate what's happening, but I could if he pointed it out to me.
Yeah.
Or I don't think that's the case for like an animal. Basically, I don't think it's an intelligence question, as in does a parrot have the intelligence to recognize a tree slowly falling over? Obviously, animals, have varying degrees of intelligence, and they certainly see and hear trees falling over. My point more broadly is nothing that the animals do matters because they're animals.
Yeah.
Like what matters is that a person, like as people, I guess, we put value on things. An animal doesn't do that. So we assign the value of like noise and sound. And I was going to do a thing about this, and I had some notes about like the etymology of words, which I find kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
And you go like, well, what is noise and is sound different? And like, what does that mean? But it's, and again, we're not going to get too far into that because it's totally down a different rabbit hole. But the idea being essentially a human will hear a tree fall in the woods and infer value to that event, whereas an animal might physically hear the sound of a tree falling over and then go, okay, cool, tree's on the ground, and just continue walking through following the smelly gazelles or whatever down the way. So there is an element, and again, my kind of philosophy of life is undergirded by the fact that humans are what make everything important. So if there are no humans to appreciate something, it's not worth anything.
Right.
So like the most beautiful landscape in the world is only beautiful when humans get there to appreciate it. Otherwise it's just a landscape. There's no beauty of a landscape because it's just a landscape. Right. Humans are what see it and go, that's a beautiful landscape.
Oh, this is like a problem of that's
a different
problem of beauty. Is it take a beholder to like create, or is it in and of itself a thing?
I think it's objectively beautiful, but like there's just no one to appreciate it, so it doesn't exist.
Well, that's a funny one. Like I know where you're going, and I agree in parts, but like if I kind of think that it probably is in and of itself vaguely beautiful if we're not there or not, and I could probably stretch out a point where you could get the world's smartest ape and the world's dumbest human. And like kind of like move them together.
I don't think there is any like I think, and I haven't done a ton of this is on the fly, but I am very confident that the world's dumbest human is still order of magnitude smarter. I'm not talking about any disabilities here. We're talking about just a person.
That was a general.
Yeah. I'm not talking about someone who is impaired in some way, like just a person who has a very low IQ but is not otherwise impaired would be an order of magnitude, several order of magnitudes more intelligent than an ape. And we can argue like where does consciousness come in, and that's all well and good, and probably a good conversation for a different time. But the general point is humans. My point is humans give things value.
Right.
So without a human, it's just bits of wood that are put together in such a way that they float on the water.
Okay. Yeah, I reckon. Yeah,
the name itself is not. The ship doesn't come out with a name. Like somebody names it.
Yeah.
Or names it after something. Like the name. Like I have a car. I've never named the car because it's pretty cringe. I'm not a 16-year-old girl. You should.
Piece of crap, so, yeah.
But you know what I mean? You don't name your car. It's just a car. But if you did, the value of that is yours. I remember we worked with a girl, I'm pretty sure, who named one of her car. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I've got a few friends that named their car for sure.
And 100%, like I always found it kind of funny and a bit silly, a bit quirky. But they are assigning value to the material makeup of the vehicle. Whoa. which is totally fine,
Yeah.
right? But they have given that value. The car didn't come with that value.
Right.
Was it? Yeah, I remember Adam was like called his car.
Definitely. Yeah. There's about 3 cars.
I think it was. I was thinking
the
of like
name.
Eilish as well. But yeah,
The blue one, a yellow one, I think.
yeah,
some
they're
other
different
one.
names. They're all crap cars.
Well, well, that's the beauty of naming car. It's either a very, very good car or
It's
a very, very
very
bad
crap.
car. There's no real point in
There's
naming
no-
a Mazda
yeah, just
3
a-
2018 or anything. Who
It's
cares?
just totally standard.
With that one, I don't know. I kind of, a different conversation, don't want to get too into it, but I probably full disagree there as well, actually. I think things probably do have an innate value. And I reckon that like a herd of elephants living their life, dying, mourning, birthing, living,
Yeah.
create value in certain other way. And I'd say that like we can't be holding all the cards with the value. And I think things have their own innate value. Like if we just disappeared, things would still be there doing specific things. It's just we haven't assigned them a humanistic value. It's not human labeled.
Well, I'm not talking about. There's a word for this, by the way.
Is there?
Anthropomorphizing, I think it is.
Probably.
Assigning human characteristics to non-human things.
Yeah.
Which I actually was.
Is that
happy.
like
I just
the-
remembered that on the fly too. I was very happy with that.
Nice.
I was
Is that
gonna
like
say,
a
like,
face
that
in the
one-
bush?
yeah.
Or is it
Yeah,
like
no,
where
it's like
a dog
when
and
a
we...
dog does something, and you're
Right,
like,
yeah.
oh, that's like handshake. You're like, no, it's not. It's just a dog doing
Yeah, the
something.
dog's actually really upset right now. You think it's happy, but
do
it's...
you know what I mean? Yeah, it's like
right.
bare its teeth. Like, it's smiling. It's not smiling, mate. It's a crocodile. It's trying to kill you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess like I do disagree in the sense that I guess it comes to, and I think we would agree on this, that there is a difference between living and existing.
Right.
And I think to live
Yeah.
to live is human, and to exist is what animals do. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not having a go at animals, but broadly speaking, like I think it's and again, we live in a pretty interesting time when people love their animals, so it's probably getting me into trouble. But like a dog is, I had a dog for like 14 years, like really cool dog. Like I love that dog. But you know, like this thing was basically genetically bred to just be kind of like a companion to people. Like it doesn't actually have like it. My dog was a Labrador.
Yeah.
And those dogs are just bred to be like man's
Yeah, what are they
super
for?
duper
They're
helper.
hunters or something?
They retrieve like ducks.
Yeah, okay, gotcha, yeah.
But like the modern day lab, because no one hunts or does anything cool anymore. The modern day lab is essentially just a super duper good companion and very, very friendly.
Yeah.
And my dog was that. A really
They're very,
great
very
dog.
friendly
I
dogs.
loved my dog. An amazing dog. Very, very good. Loved him very much. But like he didn't have any chance to do other things. Like his entire life was kind of, he just existed in a pretty tightly confounded box. This is what you are. This is how you live. But you could remake yourself several times over if you so chose to do so.
Right.
You could move to a different location. You could do a different... You could... Like, the fact that you can wake up and decide, like, I'm going to do something completely different is not an option that any elephant, any shark, any chimpanzee ever has. They wake up every day and they're like, I have to be a chimp. And like go and do chimp things.
Yeah, I guess.
And there's like varying degrees of like what that is, and some of them are really
There's
great.
fuzzy edges though to this. I could like fuzzy the
Yeah.
edges out. There's a crossover, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like
There was a chimp who could do sign language, like 100 words.
but
maybe
you can
200
teach.
words.
You can teach things. You know,
Yeah.
I think I don't know if it was what's that guy, the naturalist. It was Darwin,
Attenborough?
and he said
Oh, okay,
like
right.
the ability to speak does not convey intelligence.
Right. Yeah.
Which is true. Like a parrot can say hundreds of words, thousands of words, maybe.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they're intelligent. Like they are to
Yeah.
a degree for an animal, but like you
No, but
wouldn't
you
say.
could put them together into a legible sentence. Like a bird's just regurgitating stuff, but supposedly this monkey could put it into a sentence that made sense and back them up into like, and then you can't really argue they're just like popping shit off. They're actually like, it's like, I'm hungry, I don't like that nice hat. And they're like, okay, shit, she's actually paying attention to what's going on.
Yeah, interesting. Like it's an interesting thing.
So
but
Brett
it
has
is
chimed in and said, anthropomorphism.
anthropomorphizing. Yeah.
Thumbs up, very good job. The attribution of human characters or behavior to a god, animal, or object. Well done.
Thanks,
You did
Brendos. I was gonna
It's
when I was
pretty
on the fly. I'm like, it's a word for it, and I forgot it, and then it just came to me, and I felt
Beautiful.
really good about it.
Your
Yeah,
brain went,
it felt good.
You gotta get it out.
Exactly. Yeah. I was the camera were on, the lights are on. I was under the pump.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I think coming back to the ship.
Yeah, let's
a
roll
little
back to
bit,
that
because
ship,
I think that is. I'm more than happy to go back and forth on this, and then to go.
I'm surprised
through,
we've gone this long. I thought it was going to be
Well-
like over in a sec, but this is popping. Yeah.
It's good fun, like, because I like when you try to blur the boundary, or anyone does.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's fun to go. Like, I don't exist in a world where I think everything's right and wrong. Like, if I am ignorant to an idea, like I'm kind of want to know why, and obviously half of what we do is kind of question things and want to
Yeah.
know what's going on. And I think, yeah, we're quite a nice contrast, because I probably have firmer views on certain moral things and probably than you. But it's a good kind of mix and match.
Yeah, what are you trying to say?
Not a bad thing.
You're a bit
I'm
immoral.
trying to say that I'm a Catholic and you're not a Catholic. That's what I'm trying to say. Yet.
immoral, amoral, idiot.
You're
It's just all
all
names for
just-
Cameron.
you
You got
just-
some time.
Synonyms for Cameron. You idiot. No, okay. So my basic thing is a human infers value. A human has given the Ship of Theseus its name
Yeah,
and its associated value.
yeah,
And the essence of that ship is the task it was created to do,
right,
not the material vessel itself.
right.
Which is maybe a cop out. Like I will totally admit that it's probably a bit of a cop out. It's not what the intention of the question is. However, I think that's, to me, obviously, I think it's a better understanding of what like forms are and like what the essence of this thing is. If we were going to treat it, I guess, more literally, I would just say kind of again, well, 51% is then it's no longer you've lost the majority of the Ship of Theseus. So once you lose the majority, you then lose the ability to call yourself the Ship. Because if you've got one nail left that hasn't been replaced, it's about to be. You're like, well, you're not going to call that the Ship of Theseus. But if you took one nail out, you wouldn't change the name and be like, it's actually Ship of Theseus minus one nail. You just be like, yeah, it's Ship of Theseus. You know.
So like, I know what you mean. I kind of probably, kind of agree with that. What do you think in relation to if it's a human? Because like the identity
This is
principle
way more
like,
exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Because
if you cut
I've
my
always
arm
thought
off,
about
replace my arm. If you cut me ears off, replace me ears. Well,
Yeah.
don't even do that. Just wait till
Well,
the
this
cells
is-
regurgitate themselves.
Look, if we live in a pretty impressive age, biometrics and things. Like if we, maybe that's not the right word. Biometric, I think it's like security. Whatever the thing is, they like give you like a arm. There's like a word for it now. I can't think of it.
Brennan will come into it in a sec.
But you have a machine arm.
Yeah, bionic.
Bionic.
Yeah.
No one, good man. No one in the world is going to look at you and go, "You're not Cameron."
Yeah, right.
No, because no one would say that, even
Yeah.
though, even like if you're Darth Vader, right, or you're Anakin who lost.
So what did he lose? Like 80% of his body or something.
There's a lot
Legs.
of I don't know. I'm not a Star Wars
Legs
super
and
nerd,
arms,
so
yeah.
I know he lost. Like I think at the end he basically was like more machine than man.
Yeah,
But no one is like he's not, who he is. He's still Anakin.
Yeah.
Skywalker. He changed his name himself, but like he's not a different person.
yeah.
I guess like there's probably some ridiculous nonsense about he actually is a different guy and he's
Yeah.
like
He
but,
changed fundamentally.
yeah.
Therefore
But
his name changed.
I think like Anakin Skywalker, the physical person didn't disappear. He still is. He just happened to have bionic arms.
Yeah.
Um,
So then, what do you think? I don't know. So, do you think then Anakin? What's the difference?
it's actually a really good. It's actually like I'm not a super duper like I liked Star Wars when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I grew up, which is something that maybe other Star Wars people should do. Like,
Yeah.
I remember you used to say, like, people were like, "Oh, the new Star Wars sucks." I'm like, "It's not for you. It's a children's movie. Like, it's not. You're like 36.
It's a whole other conversation.
Dave,
But I do agree. All the new
what are
ones
you
suck shit.
doing? You're like 35. It's not for you, bro. Or they messed up the lore. What are you doing,
I
mate?
wish Jar Jar Binks came back at this point.
Why are you at the movies at midnight? You're wearing a costume. Come on, mate.
Do you think a very old man, Anakin Skywalker, when he's dying, and I think he dies at some stage. I don't know. Gets electrocuted. Is he different than child Anakin Skywalker before he's evil? We're using this example now. I like it.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that in this scenario, like people change, which is I think what the essence of this question is like, am I the person I was at 21? Like, no, I am actually a different person. I was baptized.
You were
I
reborn.
was reborn, baby.
Yeah.
Convert to the Catholic Church. But there's an element of
and everyone else that became Darth. No, yeah.
There's a halo somewhere that I have to earn. There is you do change. Like there's like change is the only constant in the world is change.
Yeah.
Like you are obviously going to change. Most people call it like the natural maturation of man.
Yeah.
Over time, you become calmer, wiser, whatever,
Yeah.
better, essentially. Like I look at myself as a 21-year-old and would say like, yeah, like not a horrible, evil person by any means, but certainly not a good person. Just like a guy who existed and mostly followed fairly base passions. Like, you want to go out and have a few beers? Like, yes. I don't even care that I've got to work tomorrow or like at 5 a.m. Like, who cares?
Coles,
I want to, yeah.
Like that matters.
Yeah, and like part of it is, again, you get older and you look back, you go, there is, even though it's not your career or your maybe calling,
Yeah.
you actually do, like, you do have an obligation to the people who are paying you to not steal.
Yeah, well,
from them
yeah, 100%.
by just
It's more obvious if it's a
vomiting
small
in the-
business.
yeah,
And you were
vomiting in the
literally screwing these people over for money. But if it's
Sure.
a ginormous metropolis
corporation, we kind of just
that
look
is
past
secretly
it. But-
screwing you as well, then
But
it's something.
yeah. But from a more moral perspective, like, you shouldn't, I guess,
Yeah.
getting wiser is like, probably that was maybe a bit of, I mean, I know we both called in sick a few times on the old bad kebab excuse after a few,
Yeah, I use that
too many beers. Yeah, 100%.
Once or twice.
It's great. I think
It doesn't
we
lie
got in trouble
entirely.
because
It tells the truth that I was out at some point.
yeah,
But it got the better of me with the food.
yeah, that's
Not other
true.
reasons.
Yeah. I think maybe we got in trouble when we both had the same excuse, same kebab shop, man. I will tell you.
That is quite believable, though.
It's very
Actually,
believable. Okay, anyway, I digress. So we do change.
yeah.
So we are different. And I suppose this is the part that we'll probably argue with the most is,
Yeah.
are you
Probably.
a different person?
Yeah.
Is your essence different? Or is it the sort of, is there a threshold by which you mature to a point where you are no longer your old self?
Right.
An easier example to this, I think, is puberty.
Right.
Because you physically change a lot. You
Yeah.
have a significantly different.
Oh, within 2 years, you go from Pokemon to like, like, yeah, I'm angry.
I'm into the ladies, which is great,
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's a very visible, easy to digest like change in a person.
Yeah.
So that's probably a better one than just like a random in your 20s
Yeah.
and 30s, because it's not. It's harder to quantify like when the change happens or what. Like, there's any definitive point to that. So I would say you are there's a demarker where you are no longer a child, you're now an adolescent, and then you become an adult,
Yeah.
and then you become, you're middle-aged, I don't know, what, old.
Biden, and then you die.
I'm pretty sure after Biden, it's death. Like, there's no more.
He meets you at the door. When the Grim
In
Reaper
fact, he
kicks you
might
through.
actually be death. We're not sure. But there's definitely, but whatever, like how you
Yeah.
want to break it up. Like, if you broke up life into 7 parts and you had, infancy,
Yeah.
your early childhood, which would be probably great, because I love, like, young kids are just really, really fun. For those of you who don't have kids, they're just amazing. And then you have your
Jury's out.
Cameron's soft. He's a soft boy.
Yeah.
But 7 to 14 is probably a good chunk
Yeah.
of time where your kid's old enough to reason, play some chess, learn an
Yeah.
instrument, but they're still wholly dependent upon you, and you're probably still the most important person in their life. 14 to 21. This is my favorite time period. I think I joked with you. I'm like, man, my dad was such an idiot when I was 16. And then by the time I was 21, I'm like, he has learnt a lot of things. Like, he's come a long way. And I think that's a bit
Your
of a
dad was
joke.
saying you were an idiot.
Yeah, it's a bit of a joke about how when you're 14, 15, you think you know everything.
No, it's terrible. Yeah.
And then when you get a bit older, you're like, actually,
I'm
maybe my
garbage.
dad was onto something
Yeah.
here. And that's
and it gets worse from there, really.
then if you are a lover of philosophy, you're like, I actually know nothing,
Yeah.
and this is crazy.
Well,
but
I
then
think
you
as
kind
you
of
get
think
older, you
about it,
realise
you're
you
like,
don't know much.
no one knows anything, and we're all just kind of doing things.
You think when you're a little kid, all the adults have the right idea. When you get older, you go, oh my God, no one knows what they're
No
doing
one
at
knows
all.
what they're doing.
This
Everyone's
is
just kind of
insane.
winging it. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I've got a point, and that might lead into an interesting other point.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
So I actually think you are a fully different person. And I think it's like
Fully different,
like pretty
wholly,
much
fully
like
different.
an actually different person. But contrary to what your difference to the ship, you have cells or like a personality that is causationally transitioning you into the next body. Like, as in, so there's a direct causation between the expulsion of this dead cell and a new one appearing that's copied itself from the old cell. It's a causational link. Like, this cell caused this cell. Someone didn't come in and take the cell and be like,
it's not a random piece.
no, it's not a bionic
of
arm.
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
a causational. in
Your
time and
body
place.
has prepared for the next.
Yeah, and it's been
Yeah.
created at the
like
same
a butterfly.
place.
You made your own cocoon. Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Whereas
gotcha,
with
gotcha.
the ship,
It's different.
There's technically not really a causational link.
Well,
You're
it doesn't have
taking
to be the
something
same
from other
timber,
place.
just to be the same shape.
You're just
vaguely.
fully replacing it.
Right.
So
right.
when I used to think about this, then what the hell makes you? Because there's another example that like is like, well, okay, what happens if you have you everyone seen what's that film with Hugh Jackman where he's like copying himself?
Hugh Jackman.
The Illusionist. Damn it, Brennan. What's that movie with Hugh Jackman? And it's got like
Is it
Christian Bale in it, and it's
that's
Christopher
the,
Nolan and stuff.
2004.
Yeah, something like that. The something. The Illusionist.
It's all right. Brennan wants to look
It'll
it up.
Anyway, so what happens if theoretically you walk into a machine and it copies you and you pop out over there? Is that you?
Yeah.
It's exactly
No.
like let's say theoretically
not
exactly you.
It's just a copy of you,
It's a
though,
copy.
isn't it? Yeah. So
And
I would say no.
the machine kills the original.
Oh, shit.
I think that's
That's
because it can't be two of you, I suppose, can it?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think I did watch a movie once, sort of vaguely similar thing about the multiverse, but it wasn't like any superhero movie. It was like this multiverse, and then I think it was called The One, maybe.
Ooh.
And it was kind of cool because like you could
okay. Was that like
Jackie Chan.
Jet Li or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I know what you're
It was
talking
actually
about.
like vaguely pretty cool, and they like travel
The Prestige, Brennan.
They
The
travel
Prestige,
through and
yeah.
they kill like themselves.
Yes, I remember
to
that.
become more powerful, to be
Yes.
like the one.
That wasn't bad. I have
It
to
was
watch it
kind
back
of interesting.
though,
Yeah,
so
I
haven't
was
seen it
involved. I
30
remember I was
years
like,
or
kids, like this is the most amazing thing ever. Like it'd be so cool if I was the one.
Yeah, that's right. That was a good movie.
That's main character syndrome. Very good, but just fully for sure, like a good time. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about. So
the reason why, like, I agree, I don't think that is you. It's not copy because it's not causationally linked. You've just copied new cells out of thin air, and the original ones are still here.
Yeah.
And you've had to kill them all. Like,
once those
does that
ones
make
are
any sense?
killed, though,
Yeah,
is that you?
I don't think so. It's just
If-
another copy.
Could you?
It's a person who's exactly like me in every way.
Could you tell that it's a copy?
No,
You couldn't tell.
no. It's a perfect copy.
Do you think your mum would know? I'm being serious. I'm not.
No, not if she didn't know anything about this thing because it's perfect copy.
Yeah. Perfect copy. So,
But it would know it's the copy, I assume, when it comes out.
well, yeah, this is interesting. Like, is it copying the material, like Cameron being? It looks like you. It talks like you. It, it's late like you.
It would be.
It would be
it's me.
100%. But does it
Yeah.
come with your memories and mannerisms and?
It does, but it's not in the same space of space time as me. It's being transported. It's a brand new thing. That's what I think. Like space and time causally, like you can't take the Ship of Theseus and make a new one because over 400 years, it's a new thing, temporally and spatially. It's in a different space. The old boards are now they still exist somewhere. They're like space and time disintegrating in the museum.
Yeah, they could disintegrate to nothing.
Yeah.
That's kind of it. Like it's an interesting one on the human side. I think the
What do you
constant.
think? Because you probably think there's an essence of you that died originally and been. This is like some dirty magic that's been completed here that shouldn't be getting done. I don't know.
No, I mean, I think we have material bodies that grow old and die, and we have an eternal soul. Is what I think on a practical level. For the point of this exercise, because I remember it was really funny. We did this a couple of years ago, and I think we spent 3 hours by a fire drinking beers talking about this. And my wife was like, we should do some philosophy. And then like 5 minutes later, she'd solved it. So I was like, oh, no more of that. I go, I want to have some fun.
Yeah, the beauty is the fact you can't solve it.
Yeah, you solve all the
We're
philosophical
trying to figure
questions.
this out. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I would say if you take out, which I don't know if you can really, but if you take out the idea of a soul, which I think I will for the purpose of this because it's kind of a bit of a cop-out.
Yeah, right.
I think in a way, like it doesn't really get to the essence of what the Ship of Theseus is. I would say, yeah, you probably are a different person because again, like you, I think it's way harder to know when that change happens.
Yeah.
Like the ship, I think is easier. I think because it's a purely material object, the value of it and the name of it and the thing itself is whatever I decided to be.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Like if I'm the king and I say this is the Ship of Theseus, you're like, okay then, done. And people will
won't
be
say
like,
anything,
yeah,
'cause
sure,
I'll be
works
noted,
fine.
yeah.
Like works fine to me. Like I mean, on a more abstract level, like what is France? You're like, well, they just decided that this is France. You're like, okay, cool.
Concept.
And then after time, like the land has changed, the topography has changed slightly, not massively, but like slightly. But people like still go, yeah, this is France.
Yeah.
So I think the Ship of Theseus is an idea born out of man, and like therefore it's not linked to its material. But a man like is like the value of me to a degree comes from like me talking and me giving myself value by conversing and interacting with the world in a way common to man, right? So when, like, because I would agree, like, yeah, we do change, and in this instance, like, if we're changing, and I would say, like, if you know, met us in our early 20s, you go, like, you guys are very different, mostly just louder. I'm joking. I'm kidding. Like, you guys are very different people. Probably not so different that you wouldn't like kind of link them up vaguely and be like, you guys are probably the same. But there is definitely a huge degree of variance. Maybe not a different, like a fully different person, but you're like an evolved person, maybe.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
You're evolved. I think, different.
I don't know. It's hard for me to say.
You definitely changed, but how much?
It's just hard for me to say because you're like, I remember talking about this once with a buddy of mine who was doing psychology. And just saying, we might have a psychologist coming on the show in a little while.
He's like, you're all terrible.
No, he's a really lovely guy, like a professor. And I think he's, like we vaguely had some conversation on this and he quite loves it. But he's a professor and obviously talks a lot about the mind and like what you're feeling and how all these things interact. And he was really interesting. He's like, I can give you, I think he can't give you drugs, but like you can take drugs. A psychiatrist. I think that's right, the difference I was thinking. But like he's a psychologist, so a psychiatrist can give you drugs to alter your kind of brain, the way you know your chemistry, mood and things like that. Yeah, but like the effect it has on your mind is different to every person. Like it's not, and even like drugs more broadly, like they have a general that they can like kind of numb certain things, but like your individual reception of those drugs is different to mine. But more or less the point I'm trying to make is like your mind is actually not a physical thing that we can touch. Like the brain is in your head, but the mind is sort of an abstract thing where it's like your thoughts in your brain.
It's more
you
like
can
take
part, you can take part of your brain out and you can still be conscious, but like that part of the brain obviously has value and meaning. You can't just be taking things off. You know what I mean? Like everything in the human body has a purpose. Even if you argue about the relative importance of your appendix, it still does something. I don't know exactly what it does. I'm not really into the kind of biology side, but like it does have a purpose. My wife would know. She's a nurse.
Well, each mind's different. They all have different
100%,
thoughts.
100%.
They have different contents. Is the thought a real
so I
thing?
guess what I'm saying is like your physical body may have completely changed, but your mind is not made of material matter. It is more of an abstract idea. The mind itself is not. Your consciousness, which is what I mean when I say mind, is not. It's not in your shoulder blade.
Right.
It is the essence of you, the ability to take, and I guess like if your brain is the ability to learn and store and recall information, your mind is what gives it meaning and forms the sentence to speak out.
I kind of know where you're going with that, and that's a real complex one.
It's definitely
like
crazy.
Yeah, I don't know what you mean. Like it's the concept of the mind. I don't think anyone actually has this pat down. They don't really know what the hell consciousness is.
For sure.
You get you and take all your matter, and you chuck yourself over there, and you're a zombie, or I kill you. You're
taking my
you're
mind from
substantively exactly the same, but what's changed? People don't really know.
No, it's definitely
it's like
super
confusing.
Interesting. Well, it's like we kind of get into it with like this Neuralink and things like that.
Upload your mind in a computer.
Yeah, 100% no.
I reckon it's
definitely
not.
not.
It's now just a program.
I wouldn't be doing that.
Because you are dead. You've just uploaded your thoughts into some machine that is now going to do whatever the hell.
Well,
it
I
wants
just
to do.
definitely wouldn't. I would just. That's how every apocalypse movie starts.
People think it's like, oh, so good, I'll live forever. Like, it won't be you. It'll be a computer.
It's another super good. Like, why would you want to live forever? Why does everyone want to do that?
Yeah, I live for a long
time. You know what's funny is like most people that say that, like, you live a pretty boring life, mate. Like, what do you want to live more for? You can watch so many more TV shows. Like, you don't do anything exciting anyway.
Discord.
Like, what are you talking about? Discord.
So what do you have?
That's an inside joke there.
We got bloody Nature of Mind is another podcast. And what was the other thing we had? What'd you write down?
I wrote the material versus but beyond the material. Like, does things like, and I would say, obviously, my side is like it's easy enough to.
Was that what it was? I thought it was something else.
Really?
Okay, no, that sounds right. They're two really good subjects. We should do that. That's 100%. That could be like 10.
We could do a series on it.
Is this a series? mean, technically
Oh,
we're doing one right now, I suppose. But yeah.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, the Ship of Theseus probably is like one of the introductions to like material, the forms and like the essence of things. So I'm kind of on board with that. We probably should have some sort of theme vaguely to what we're doing, like a season perhaps of
We
like,
should, of specific
Yeah,
things. Yeah,
so
that
people
actually
can-
link to each other.
yeah, other posts like, remember that last time we did masculinity? I got another cool thought about it, which is cool, which is good. I like it. It's just
Yeah.
all about authentic conversations here on Two Blokes in a
On
Cave.
TVC.
TVC, baby.
Okay,
Okay,
well,
well,
look.
look-
I suppose. Is that what you're going to do? Oh, you're going
I was going to say one more, like on the I wanted to get your kind of final thought on, obviously I'm going to wrap it up right now. I want to get your final thought on
Yeah.
when, in your mind, because you mentioned to me that you are definitely, I think the word you use, a different person. So when
Yeah.
do you become a different person? Is it at the 7th year exactly? Or is it
Yeah,
6
yeah.
years,
It's
when do you become...
It's scalar.
yeah. But when is the point where you're
You
like...
can't. You can't.
you can't
yeah,
tell.
See, there's a paradox there.
Yeah, it's always going to be like, well, minus one day.
Yeah.
I had this combo with a guy I worked with, really good dude. He probably won't mind me saying this because he was very outspoken about this, but he,
This is his name, is where he lives.
it's that typical
No,
question.
yeah.
It's like, would you suck a man's dick for $1 billion? I was like, it's terrible. Like, I wouldn't do it because
Yeah.
I think it's to me, I'm not doing it because my
Right.
will is worth this to me, and I'm not, my dignity is worth more than the money. He's like, well, that's stupid because $1 billion is, it's like basically infinity money. You live life. Imagine it this way: like $1 billion is so much money that you would essentially live life as if everything is free.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of a crazy way to live. You just do whatever you want because everything's free.
Nothing would mean.
And I said, listen,
much.
the problem with that is once you say you will do something for money, I can just reduce the amount of money and you would still do it by that exact logic, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah,
you say,
yeah.
oh, well, $1 billion is a lot. I'm like, yeah, but like $100 million, you're going to turn down $100 million,
Yeah.
suck a dick. Like, okay, $100 million, I'll still do
Yeah.
$100 million. That's a lot of money. Okay, what about $10 million? You're like, well, it's actually a pretty nice house and I could retire and
Yeah.
like $1 million wouldn't make a difference in your life. Well, I could buy,
Make a good point.
buy a land. But all of a sudden you get to a point where you're like, you're just a whore.
Damn it! I did this for $20. Now they whittled me down so much. It was bad at
Just a new
negotiating.
Subway sandwich. Hey, mate,
But it was
sandwich.
free. Oh.
So I guess that's my thing
Old
on,
English
on
cheese.
that,
Yeah.
which is the same kind of. I say that as a joke because we had this. I work with this guy. He was really fun to chat to, and just a good bloke in general. But his argument, I guess, was like it would be irresponsible not to. Okay. Anyway, I think Brendan's telling us we gotta wrap it up.
Should we mention this again in the next one?
We're out of time. We'll bring it into the next one. Thank you for tuning in. This has been Two Blokes in a Cave. We're trying to get out of the cave. Till next time. See you later.
See ya.